experimental A for the density lab, the preparation of a density rainbow. We're going to be using the analytical balance, and first thing to start, we're going to make sure that the balance is nice and clean, because in the future when we are working with chemicals, we're going to want to make sure that there's no contamination. So we'll be starting with the analytical balance, which we saw earlier in our videos. We have our cage here, which I will close and re-zero like so. Might take a bit to stabilize, and you may have to re-zero again. So once you're at zero, we're going to be using a plastic weighing boat for this part. So this is step one of the experimental A. Get our plastic boat on there, and we will tare it by pushing re-zero. Now we're going to add, it says approximately 20 grams of sugar. We're going to take the boat off because we never add directly to the analytical balance. And I'm going to add some of my sugar. As you can see, we have the negative weight of the plastic boat from tearing. I'm going to center that and close the cage. Keep going until you're about at 50 grams. Once you reach about 50 grams, you're going to want to record that number, and then we'll be moving on to step two, which is transferring this solution, this sugar, to create a solution for our stock. Step two involves transferring your sugar to a 250 milliliter beaker and adding 80 milliliters of water to dissolve it. Use a graduated cylinder when measuring out the 80 mils, as a beaker is not appropriate for measuring volume. You're going to want to use a glass stirring rod to stir your sugar into solution. Once your sugar is into solution, you're going to want to transfer it into a 100 milliliter volumetric flask. Fill to the neck of the flask with your wash bottle. And you're going to want to top off with an eyedropper until the level of the solution reaches the graduation mark on your flask. Make sure to get eye level so you can see the meniscus. You're going to cap, and you're going to want to mix your solution, because the denser sugar solution that you've put in is going to be resting on the bottom. Inverting with the cap on will ensure that your solution is thoroughly mixed and ready to be used as a stock. All right, we'll now move on to the preparation of our dilutions for the density rainbow. We're going to take the 250 milliliter beaker that we dissolved our sugar in, and we're going to label that A. This is going to be our stock for preparing the 4 other dilutions. We're going to transfer the solution from the volumetric flask that we prepare. This is, again, our stock solution of sugar. And using the chart in our lab, which I'll show you right here, which you can see, solution A, water, and drops of food coloring. So we're going to be preparing the components of our rainbow. So in pre-labeled 50 milliliter beakers, we're going to use a graduated pipette to administer these volumes of solution. Obviously for E, we're just going to leave out our solution, our stock solution. Okay, so we're going to use our graduated 10 milliliter pipette, and you'll begin preparing each solution. You're going to go through and add your sugar stock solution first, And when you're done adding that, you're going to rinse your pipette through with water and add the water additions. It's extremely important to follow the guide on the chart for adding the drops of food coloring. Make sure to only add 1 drop of blue, 1 drop of green, 1 drop of yellow. We're going to want to try and do a half a drop, if you can, in D of yellow, and then a half a drop of red in D. That's to make orange. And we're going to want 2 drops of red for E. Oh, there's 3 on accident. It's important to get these colors right because if they're too dark, they'll bleed into each other and the rainbow won't show out right. We want to give a quick stir with your glass stir rod. Make sure to wipe with a Kim wipe as we do this so our colors don't get skewed. And remember, it's extremely important to mix thoroughly here because we have our sugar, we have our water, and the food dye here. If you take the solution off the top when you're doing your density rainbow, you're not going to get the correct density of the solution, which will really cause your colors to bleed. I'm going to give this one a stir again. All right, moving on, we'll now prepare the rainbow. Preparing the density rainbow requires a very steady hand and patience. For this, we're going to use a pipette bulb and a passer pipette to slowly administer each color and layer it on top of each other. So we're going to start with solution A, which in theory will be our densest solution. And we're going to want to tilt the graduated cylinder on a 45-degree angle, and you're going to draw your pipette tip all the way down into the graduated cylinder. You're going to want to get a decent layer of our blue, because this is going to be the cushion for when we start layering our green. So for the first one here, and I say we'll add about 5 to 10 mils, which is about 5 squirts of this in here, giving us a nice first layer. So now this is where you're going to want to pay attention, and it's pretty important that when we're doing this, we don't contaminate our colors. So some art skills here will be good. Now for this one, since I have green being as the next one, I'm going to rinse my passer pipette with a little water. Now it doesn't matter if there's a little residual water in here, because as long as we're going from most concentrated to least, it's not going to affect the density so much, whereas it won't layer on top. So now I have my green, which is solution B, and I'm going to draw the pipette tip all the way down, almost to the surface, and I'm going to slowly squeeze the bulb and layer my next solution. It's a little hard to see with the light right now, but you should start seeing our colors layering. I hold a piece of paper out for you all. You'll see that we're getting that layering. So you're going to go ahead and do this for the rest until we get to solution E and have the completion of our rainbow. Remember to rinse in between colors, because the slightest bit of green will tint the yellow. Again, tilt to the side. Draw your passer pipette all the way down to the surface and slowly dribble the solution down the side, layering it on top of the green layer. You can start to see the yellow resting on top there. I'll finish out the solutions. And just for good measure, here's a view of the density rainbow from the side. As mentioned before, the red and the orange can kind of bleed together, but you get the gist. I hope you've enjoyed this experimental for creating a density rainbow.